Hey there, Think Twice fans. We're back finally for the third match of Basement FNM second go around. So, um, here we are. We're gonna rock this and see how this last match ends up going as we finish them out. So, as we jump in here, we are going to find everything is back in its proper order. You will find me on the right with Golgari Yawgmoth. Looks like I'm on the play. I started out with a Beseiju into a Grixis Zenith, searching for a Dryad Arbor, and it happened to be the top card. And on your left, in his normal spot, is Drew on his, as he calls it, Grixis Jund deck. Basically, this means it is fair mid-range value creatures. Looking to get some things there. Drew bobbles me, sees a Dredger's Insight on top. Looks like he's going to fetch Shock. Probably then lead into a turn one play. Looks like he's got two Frogs and another land in hand. Those are the only cards I caught as we went through, as he sifted through that there. So we'll see what he ends up finding. Looks like a Watery Grave is going to be the choice. So likely either a push for this Dryad Arbor or a Thoughtseize maybe. Push it is. Alright, so my mana acceleration gone. We do know I at least have a not Dryad Arbor, a Dredger's Insight. Looks like I decide just to play a Spymaster's Vault for turn. Might be the only choice of a second land, so we're going to bobble again. See a Misty Rainforest on top this time. Maybe a Frog coming down? Oh, no second land. Ouch. That's a rough one. Looks like he maybe just drew the second land, a Polluted Delta, off of the bauble draw, so we'll have to wait until turn 3 to have 2 lands available. Looks like I'm going to fetch and shock for an Overgrown Tomb. Something to always think about with whatever deck you're playing is what cards you need what mana for. So most of Yawgmoth is green these days, but you do want to make sure you have access to double black mana for two different things. I go for a Badger Cub, it gets spell snared. For two different things. One is Yawgmoth itself needs 2 black mana, and also you need a black mana to activate a Spymaster's Vault. Looks like Drew's going to Thoughtseize me, sees a Dredger's Insight, a Rumble, and 2 Soul Cauldrons. But you also want 2 black mana, technically, to be able to activate Spymaster's Vault. It only costs 1 black mana, but it is a black source itself, so you need a second black source to activate the Spymaster's Vault, is all. Looks like Drew chooses to take away the Dredger's Insight. Takes away the availability for, some more infinite style loops with the deck. Don't have many of the other pieces for it yet, but looks like still 2 Frogs, a Bowmaster, and some other cards. We're going to Rumble, hit Sephiroth, Grixis Zenith, Walking Ballista, and Verdant Catacombs. Looks like we're going to grab the Sephiroth. When I'm playing a version with Sephiroth, it's always kind of nice to play that, follow up with an Underground Mortuary. Looks like I'm going to Surveil, keep on top. Sometimes the Sephiroth is just a decent value play. I don't always choose to play one. I kind of go back and forth on whether or not I think it's a good inclusion or not. Oh, second Rumble next turn. Looks like Drew just played a second Delta and passed. This time we see a couple of lands, one of them being a Shifting Woodland, a Badger Cub, and a Yawgmoth, with the 2 Soul Cauldrons in hand. I'm just gonna leave the Yawgmoth in the yard. It's a little bit more potent there. Soul Cauldron is a lot cheaper to cast than Yawgmoth. Here comes the Badger Mole Cub. Looks like maybe a Snapcaster Mage Spell Snare is the plan. So Drew's going to fetch twice. First time shocking for his team. That's the second time just grabbing a basic island. So in total, 4 life lost to set up the mana here. Yep, looks like snap for snare. Snapcaster gets in for an attack for 2 damage. Drew's hand is Bowmaster, Frog, Push. Maybe another Thoughtseize is the last card. So interestingly, only has 1 black mana, so even though he has a bunch of cards, he can only cast 1 spell this turn. Fatal Push for an Eldrazi spawn is not overly enticing. He would need some sort of Revolt enabler to finish off, to take out Sephiroth, so not a lot of fantastic options here. So generally in a position like this, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out what do I think my opponent has in hand based on how they've played, to figure out what is the best way to operate in trying to execute a game plan, because you know, if there's just no answer for the Sephiroth, it's probably just a really good get. But if he's got, you know, a counter spell or just, you know, a lightning bolt or something, so I'm gonna go for the Soul Cauldron onto Dryad Arbor. So Drew could consider casting the Bowmaster here. Looks like that's what's happening. I'm going to target the spawn. I'll choose to sacrifice it for mana, as then it denies him the token. And now I have a colorless mana float, and I can use that to activate, or not activate, to cast Sephiroth. So some options going on here. I think what I was planning on doing was using the, I guess I couldn't have done that. I wonder if it was a better play to play the Cauldron resolves, cast the Sephiroth, and then maybe just use the sack the spawn to the Sephiroth trigger, draw a card, go from there. Drew attacks with both of his creatures, probably hoping that I'll block one, so he can use the push. I feel like that was a little bit of a telegraph with that attack, being that there's no other way to like really make these work. So I just take the hit for 11, or down to 11, in order to preserve my Sephiroth, which is something that can probably start to pull me out of this game pretty well. So Badger Mole Cub comes in. I always like Earthbending onto a Surveillant if I have it, because when it comes back, you get that Surveil, which is good. We're gonna Soul Cauldron here looks like targeting a Walking Ballista. Putting a counter on Sephiroth, so now Sephiroth can tap for mana and fling counters around. Interestingly here, Drew has tapped himself out of his black mana, so I can kill something on this turn, and Fatal Push can't kill the Sephiroth. I believe, if I remember his hand correctly, he has no plays open. Looks like maybe 3 cards in hand, so the Frog could be get up to be a 4/5. So floating some mana, and then use the Ballista ability on the with the Underground Mortuary, kill the Bowmaster, then you get the Surveil. I'm looking at this Surveil for a minute. Must be a interesting decision here. We'll have to see if we can pick up what it is at some point. I guess we'll see the next. So then I'm going to use a black mana to connive 2 here. So probably Sephiroth conniving. At this point, because Sephiroth has survived for a couple of turns, so discard what looked like a Yawgmoth, and then didn't catch the other card. But obviously, because of the counter, it was a non-land card. So Sephiroth is now a 6-power creature, with my opponent being at 9. So then considering what I want to do with the attack trigger, where I could sacrifice another creature, draw a card, do a life, the ping from Sephiroth, that sort of thing. But because Sephiroth survived for a couple turns, is what I was saying, I can get the read that Drew can't kill it. So it's either he doesn't have a kill spell or he has a Fatal Push that he has not been able to trigger Revolt on yet. And so that's why I can feel a little bit safer going in for some more counters on Sephiroth, because and so then Ballista just finishes the game. I make a joke about the fact that Drew has killed me so many times with Ballista because I just forgot about the whole ability to like hit and then remove counters, and I celebrated that I finally got to do the same kind of thing in reverse. We'll see you for game 2. All right, looks like we're looking at hands. Looks like I'm on a mulligan. Appears that Drew is keeping whatever hand is in front of him. This is me talking and shuffling. Talking and shuffling. Eventually I'll stop shuffling. One day. Not yet. Now I'm gesticulating and not even shuffling. Oh, back to shuffling. It's mostly just entertaining because we start to pick up on some of our quirks and things that we don't realize we do as much necessarily when you're watching yourself do it. So, just mildly entertaining myself with realizing, like, man, this must be kind of annoying sometimes. But making sure you have a thoroughly shuffled deck, never a problem. It's always good. There I finally go. Finally decided I was done shuffling. Okay. Contemplating, maybe? I'm probably talking about something. All right, finally decided what card to put on the bottom. Decision made. Drew's going to lead off on a fetch, a shock, 1-mana play of some kind incoming. This time it leads on a Blood Crypt. So potentially a Dragon's Rage Channeler. Maybe just another Thoughtseize as the first play. See a Dredger's Insight on top again. Channeler, Bauble. Kolgon's command flipped into the yard there. I'm just going to lead on Forest and a Delighted Halfling. Drew does have a Bolt there. Darkslick Shores is a second land. Looks like maybe Bolt, Push, Spell Snare, 2 lands. Potentially is the hand. Looks like Thoughtseize is the start. And we show a hand of Yawgmoth, Dredger's Insight, Yawgmoth, Cauldron, which is the choice, and a swamp. Looks like it's probably a Delirious DRC coming in. I really struggle to click that last life point change. Looks like Drew decides to leave the Delighted Halfling around. Looks like maybe I drew another land for turn. But I'm going to play that swamp that we already know about. Oh, redecide. Fake out. Pump fake. All right, we're going to lead on the Dredger's Insight, see what we find. Does look like that's a Spell Snare in Drew's hand, so he could counter this if he wants. He does decide that he wants. Surveil on the Channeler. Leaves it on top. I'm going to fetch Shock. Fetch Shock. Looks like I contemplated thinking about it, just knowing that then I'm going to take another hit, be down to 11. That's really starting to feel some pressure on the life total. And the Yawgmoth will enter the battlefield here. Down to 11 after the attack. Third land played. Looks like Bowmaster, Bolt, and Push are the cards in hand. Yawgmoth gets a little aggressive. So it's looking like right now my hand is just a Yawgmoth and a land. So we'll take a hit down to 8, fetch down to 7, see what we can find. But right now it's also looking like next turn if I decide to deploy the Yawgmoth, that is the only thing I get to do. I get to maybe draw 2 cards with Yawgmoth. But gonna be under some pressure here. There's that attack that has to happen. Probably going to go find a mortuary. There's the mortuary. Called it. Looks like find a Dredger's Insight. Probably feeling kind of like, well, just putting Yawgmoth into play is not going to be able to save me, so maybe if I can find something else that could be useful. Thinking about the young wolf, I do grab the young wolf, which should let me gain a life back up to 9. Do I miss that? I should be at 9 life there. The young wolf left the graveyard, should have triggered the Dredger's Insight. So Drew's asking if he's dead if the Yawgmoth comes into play or not. So should be at 8. Missed my life gain. Bowmaster enters here. Drew goes back to his turn. Trying to figure out why I said it was dead. I mean, I get it. But was there a bolt in hand? Maybe he said he had a bolt in hand. But anyway, going in the last game. All right, here we are. Looks like hands are kept. And I'll shock an Overgrown Tomb, play Delighted Halfling. Drew's got a mountain, a fetch land, a little bit more reactive hand, it looks like, potentially. The basic mountain is a little bit awkward sometimes, depending on the makeup of his spells. I'm going to lead into a Badgermole Cub. I think I've talked before about how I like doing this sequencing where you're just going to Earthbend onto a tapped land when you have the mana creature, because even if they kill the Badgermole Cub with the trigger on the stack, you can use your mana creature to tap for 2 mana. So I'm going to try to rumble. Looks like Drew's going to snare that one. Snare has been putting in some work here. But Badgermole Cub is doing its thing. Saying, hey, even if I don't have a land drop next turn, if you let me untap with this board state, I'll have access to 5 mana on turn 3. So that's pretty solid. That's pretty solid. It's like the halfling going out. Oh, and then a push. So just able to kill both creatures. So no land drop. Looks like 2 cauldrons. I saw a grist in the hand too. Maybe another card. Maybe a cauldron, a grist. Maybe something. Looks like we put a halfling underneath it and say, all right, there you go. Luckily, nothing can be done to take. So yeah, it looks like cauldron, grist, ballista. That's what we're going to see. Yep. You know. Luckily, grist is probably even better in the graveyard than anywhere else, especially with the cauldron going on. So probably won't be the choice. Second cauldron doesn't seem to make much difference. Like, this is not a good Inquisition position for Drew, because here it's like, well, what do you take? There's ballista, which is really, you want it in the yard. Same thing with Grist, might be better in the yard than anywhere else because then the Cauldron can turn every other creature into a Grist. And taking the second Cauldron doesn't really feel worthwhile because there's an active one on the board, so you're not really gaining anything by taking that. So it takes the Grist. So he does have Bolt up. Looks like in upkeep that Bolt is going to take out the Overgrown Tomb, which returns because it was Earthbent. Then proceed to draw. Looks like drew a fetch land, which is good there. We're able to just play a Walking Ballista as a 1/1 creature, put Grist underneath the Cauldron, use the Grist ability to make a insect and mill a card. Then you're really kind of starting to threaten some overwhelming board states fairly quickly with that. You're just getting so many things to do stuff with. So now we enter the multiple types of dice stage of the Yawgmoth game, where you have to say, okay, this die represents this die is this, so have to have that going on. Isn't that fun? Looks like Ballista will get pushed. 2 damage will go at Drew there. Passes back. Cauldron in hand. Fresh card drawn for the turn. Looks like it is something. That's a Yawgmoth. That's a good one. So possibly putting Yawgmoth underneath it. Possibly putting the Ballista. Looks like that's what I'm thinking. Like, what do I want to target? If you put the Yawgmoth underneath, you can then draw a bunch of cards because you get access to... you can put the counter on the insect you currently have, and then you can use the Yawgmoth ability, sacrifice the Yawgmoth. Yawgmoth comes back with a counter. That can make a bug. Then you can sacrifice the bug to reset the Yawgmoth, then draw with the Yawgmoth. So you can really draw a lot of cards this way. So it looks like maybe Drew's responding to the Cauldron having chosen a target, which would have been the insect. Don't know if I passed here. I guess, yeah, the Yawgmoth would have come in this turn, so I don't have any other options. Looks like Thoughtseize land, and I can't tell what the last card is in Drew's hand. Nothing proactive that he wants to put down, at least right yet. Another upside of Yawgmoth is when you're wanting to use it for Cauldron, it's basically unstoppable because he can't do the same thing that he was able to do last turn, which is activate or like kill the creature that you're targeting upon activation. It looks like I draw a Shifting Woodland. I have creature, artifact, land, sorcery, it looks like. So I believe I could turn the Shifting Woodland into something. The best thing I could turn it into is, I guess, Badger Mole Cub, which is only really useful if then I activate the Cauldron, put something underneath it. But so what I'd have to do if I wanted to do that play is I'd tap all 4 of my lands, turn Shifting Woodland into a Badger Mole Cub, then activate the Cauldron, probably take out the Walking Ballista, and then the Yawgmoth can tap for 2 mana, but I don't think that's overly important. So I think here Drew thought that if I didn't have a counter from the Soul Cauldron that it couldn't use the abilities, but Soul Cauldron just says any creature that has a +1/+1 counter has these abilities. So we're going to make an insect, mill another Walking Ballista, and then drew a card, shoots itself, comes back. So what's happening here is the Yawgmoth is all of the things in the graveyard, so it comes back with Undyne with a +1/+1 counter. You activate Grist's +1 ability because it's a new permanent. You make a thing, you can sacrifice that bug with the Yawgmoth's ability on the Yawgmoth to draw a card, and then the Yawgmoth can use Walking Ballista's ability to shoot itself. Means it dies, doesn't have a +1/+1 counter on it anymore because you removed it, so then it comes back and you can do this over and over again. So this is basically you're just taking, for the price of milling a card and losing 1 life, you draw a card. So some things you got to think about in this type of situation if you're playing Yawgmoth is how low do you want to put your life total? What are you drawing to? So like what ends up being a winning position for you? If I find a Dredger's Insight here, then I can have infinite life, which could be useful. Very likely I drew a Green Sun Zenith because I checked my sideboard, so it's probably what can I Zenith for. Looks like I've got some lands. So I drew a Spymaster's Vault, so actually I should be able to win the game right here. Because then, unless I already played a land for turn. If the Shifting Woodland was the land for turn. So basically now we're shortcutting the loop. I just say I can mill a card, spend a life, draw a card. And I end up back at this same board state instead of having to do the all the actions. So if the Shifting Woodland was the land for the turn, then I can't win this turn because I can't play my Spymaster's Vault. It very likely was the land for the turn because I was talking at the beginning of the turn about what it could be. It's another good thing to think about when you're doing complicated turns in decks like this, and really any deck, is what, like, if you have the ability to draw cards, maybe you don't play a land unless you need to because maybe you will draw a different land that is useful, especially when, like in this deck, you have some utility lands that are really important. So we're going to go Rumbling instead. Looks like Boseiju will be the take. Some other lands and a Green Sun Zenith were the options, so nothing overly fantastic. Make a spawn. Still looks like maybe I'm trying to figure out, do I have the ability to win the game here? This is a potential situation that shows there is a consideration to still run a Prosperous Innkeeper if you can fit it into the deck, because if I have a Green Sun Zenith and 3 mana here, I could have just found Prosperous Innkeeper, and then that would also let me gain infinite life. Drew's going to Thoughtseize my handful of tons of cards. Seize, Fatal Push, Badgermaul Cub, Green Sun Zenith, those couple of lands we knew about. A 2 Soul Cauldrons, takes the Zenith. But with the Spymaster's Vault in hand, this should just be game over. So it looks like a Cling to Dust in hand, which can actually break up the Spymaster's Vault Yawgmoth win loop. if Drew knows how to time it correctly. So you have to do it when the Undyne's on the stack and the Yawgmoth is in the graveyard. You have to hit it. It might be tempting for him right now, though, to think about, well, maybe I just need to try to draw a card to get something deeper. So maybe he's considering that. So maybe he's thinking about drawing a card. It looks like he is going to use it, which is going to put the shields down. So Rumble draws a card, plays a Channeler, and with the Spymaster's Vault in hand, this should just be game over as long as I know how to take actions. So I play the Spymaster's Vault, and it looks like what I'm saying is I'm going to kill Yawgmoth, have Yawgmoth kill itself with Ballista's ability as many times as I have cards in my deck. Then connive, I will draw my whole deck, I will discard that many cards, and as long as I have at least 10 non-lands left in the deck, I can then put that many counters on the Yawgmoth, and then use Ballista's ability to ping Drew until he has no longer any life total. So there it is, Yawgmoth this time decided to go all the way at basement FNM, managed to weasel away into 3 wins there. Hopefully you enjoy watching these things. If you like these types of videos, if you're a fan of watching some paper gameplay, let me know, like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all that kind of stuff. That just lets us know what people like to see, what you're enjoying, so we can just continue to put out stuff that people like to see. As always, thank you everyone for watching. If you've got questions that you would like us to talk about on a podcast episode coming up, please feel free to drop them in the comments. We would love to hear your questions and respond, and things like that, or really just any thoughts that you've got for us. So thanks for hanging out and watching. We will see you next time.